The last year has been a pretty eventful one for us and our channel, and in this video we're going to look back on all the highs and lows of 2024. We'll touch on how much the channel has grown over the last year, we'll answer some of the most common questions we've received about the channel, and we'll talk about a few things that no one has asked us about, but we just really want to share with y'all anyway.
Now, probably the biggest event of 2024 for us had to be whenever I quit my job to join Skylar working on the channel full time. Now, those 8 months, they have been quite challenging, but they have also been very rewarding. Now, we are going to get to the fun stuff in this video, like our favorite place that we stayed, our favorite adventure,
favorite food.
Yeah, all that good stuff later on in this video. But first, we do want to start just by talking about our channel growth over the last year.
So over the course of 2024, we've posted 35 videos to our main channel, Exploration, totaling over 15 hours of content. And to make that content, we spent 67 days traveling. And unfortunately, that means the vast majority of the rest of those days in 2024 was spent at home editing. And we're really hoping to change that going forward. We want to spend a lot more time traveling and a lot less time editing at our desks.
Now, speaking of spending too much time editing, many of you may have noticed that our episodes recently have been getting much longer. And one of those reasons is because we're both able to edit. And the other reason is that we've gone on trips where we have returned with way more footage than we ever could have imagined. For example, our recent Key Largo trip, we had perfect weather and so many exciting things planned that episode ended up being 50 minutes. And that is our longest episode to date. Now, we never set out on making a 50-minute video, but that's just how it ended up. So we do want to thank you all who have been willing to give us a little bit more of your time and watch those longer episodes, because that has really helped the channel grow.
Now let's take a minute to talk about our channel's growth in 2024. So far this year, I think our channel's gained right around 16,900 subscribers, and that number should increase to 17,000 by the end of the year, which means our total sub count should be right around 49,000 subscribers. Now, it's really easy to look at some of those huge travel channels on YouTube that have subscribers in the millions and feel like our little channel is growing so slowly. But the fact is, 49,000 subscribers still really is a lot of subscribers, and we're really proud of how much our channel has grown over the last year, and we're so thankful for all of you who have subscribed and supported the channel.
Now, normally we wouldn't mention our channel's watch time, but when Skylar was gathering data for this video, he shared a pretty cool milestone that we reached a couple of days ago. So in 2024, our channel has been watched for over 400,000 hours. So that brings the total for the lifetime of our channel to over 1 million hours. And that just seems pretty crazy, because that is the equivalent of 114 years. So to think that our little travel channel has been watched for 114 years is still pretty wild.
So with our 2024 channel performance out of the way, we're going to take a little bit of time to discuss a few particular videos, specifically our best and worst performers. Now, our best performer of the year was actually the video we made on the Sunseeker Resort in Port Charlotte, which has been viewed 155,000 times with over 13,000 hours of watch time in just over 9 months. And honestly, we weren't really surprised at all that that video was a top performer, because it is an absolutely beautiful property, and when we filmed it, it was pretty much brand new. So we had a pretty good idea that we'd be one of the very first channels to put out a video on that property, and we knew there'd be a lot of demand for it.
We did have a couple runner-ups for our best performing video, but we did not expect those videos to perform so well. And we will talk about those in a little bit, but first we have to talk about our worst performing video of the last year. And that was the third episode in our Costa Rica series. And honestly, it wasn't that surprising to us for a couple of reasons. The first, we were on, I think, day 5 of our Costa Rica trip, and we had been doing a lot of hiking, a lot of traveling, and we were already quite exhausted. And that morning, our rental car was damaged, even though it was minor. That is something that weighed on us quite a bit, having to deal with an insurance company in another country.
Yeah, we were definitely off our game that day.
We were, and we didn't film as much as we normally would, and it was probably the least fun day of the entire trip. So it just wasn't that surprising that it didn't perform that well.
Now, sticking on the topic of video performance, let's talk about the videos that most overperformed and underperformed our expectations this year. And starting with the underperformer, that one for us has to be the video where we tested 1-star reviews on the Carnival Paradise cruise ship. Now, we did have a couple of other videos that actually performed worse on our channel in 2024, but what made this one so disappointing was that we had such high hopes for it. We had this idea to take a video concept that we first saw on a super famous YouTube channel, testing 1-star reviews, and basically put our own spin on it and apply it to a somewhat controversial cruise ship. Now, we were super excited to create this video and had an absolute blast making it.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah, and generally that's our recipe for success on our video, but apparently we totally misjudged this one and our viewers had no interest in seeing that concept on our channel.
Well, not everybody. Some people did really enjoy it.
A few people did watch it. Those who watched it, I think, actually enjoyed it, but for whatever reason, it just didn't take off. Maybe it was our packaging. Maybe it just wasn't that great of a video. But either way, I don't think we're going to be looking to make more 1-star review videos on this channel going forward.
So even though we did have some episodes on our channel this year that really underperformed based on our expectations, we also had some videos that overperformed and completely exceeded our expectations.
We did.
And the two videos that really come to our mind have to be the King's Landing episode and the Pine Island episode. Now, to give a little bit of context, when we're deciding what episodes to film, we are trying to film episodes that we think have a chance of doing well on the channel. Usually, but also things that we will enjoy doing. But every once in a while, there's either an experience or a place that we're just really excited about that we want to go experience and explore. So we make the video anyways, even if we're not confident that it's going to perform that well. And that was the case for both of those episodes. Now, for King's Landing, we knew it was a beautiful place to paddle. It's a place we've wanted to go for years, but we also knew it was a very short paddle, and we may not have good opportunities to get a lot of footage to make a good episode. But we went there, we had a beautiful day. We ended up having a lot more footage than we expected and ended up with an 18-minute episode. And when we posted it, we were so happy that within the first 2 weeks, I think it had 60,000 views.
We were shocked. We were happy, but very surprised.
Very shocked. And I think today it's almost at 140,000 views, and it gained us over 1,000 subscribers.
Now, our other big overperformer has to be our Pine Island episode. And for those of you who haven't seen that one yet, Pine Island is definitely not like the typical island we visit on our channel. It doesn't have nice sandy beaches. It's actually much more agricultural, and it's known for having an old Florida vibe and a not so touristy feel to it. And we both had an amazing time filming our Pine Island video, even though we had some less than perfect weather and probably spent less than $200 making that entire video. But given the fact that most Floridians have never even heard of Pine Island, we were not very confident at all that that video was going to find success on our channel. But just like the King's Landing video, our Pine Island video flew out of the gates with over 100,000 views in the very first month, and today is one of our top performers with over 135,000 total views and has gotten us over 1,400 new subscribers. Now, it's videos like those two that have really helped us to realize that we don't have to always be visiting super popular or trendy places or spend a bunch of money in order to make a successful video on YouTube.
Yeah, we've actually been brainstorming some ideas of places that are not as well known but would be really fun to film an episode. So if you all have any suggestions of places that we should consider, leave those in the comments.
And we cannot guarantee those videos are going to be successful because we are far from figuring out the formula that guarantees a successful video on YouTube, but I think we are at least now much more confident that we can at least continue to grow the channel while producing content that we genuinely enjoy making.
Now, speaking of content that we truly enjoy making, we should probably talk about the videos that we had the most fun making this past year.
Yes.
And for me, it's not a single video that comes to mind, but more of a series, and that was our Keys series. Now, I think every stop that we had in that series, it was a good mix of going out and exploring, really experiencing the area, but also enjoying great food and drink. And we also got to partner with some really great local businesses. For example, in Isla Mirada, we went out on a catboat excursion. We also went on an epic fishing trip. In Marathon, we got to bike on the old 7 Mile Bridge and go snorkeling. And then in Key Largo, we got to go snooping for the first time, go on a glass bottom boat tour, and even spend some time with some rescue foxes.
Now, since Jamie picked an entire series for her most fun video to make, I guess I will too. I'm gonna go with the Costa Rica series, minus that one day that Jamie talked about earlier that went so badly. Now, the thing I love most about Costa Rica is just how beautiful the landscapes are. We had an amazing time going on some hikes. We saw a lot of waterfalls. We did get to visit some of our favorite spots from our first trip in Costa Rica, but we also got to experience a lot of new parts of the country as well. We really got off the beaten path. We went to some spots where they don't get many tourists. And I think we both enjoyed those spots a lot more than the super touristy areas. It was just an amazing trip, and we cannot wait to go back again.
Now, we can't talk about our most fun videos to make without also talking about our least fun videos to make.
True.
And I'm pretty sure that your choices are going to be much different than mine. So
We'll see.
I'll start with mine. The first one that comes to mind has to be Fakahatchee State Park. To be honest, that video almost didn't happen after we got out there, and so many things went wrong. We had to have a conversation about if we were even going to move forward with filming the episode. But we did, and I am glad we did. It still was overall a good day, but it wasn't fun for me, the possibility of having to encounter like hornets or wasps or alligators or Florida panthers.
Yeah, I think we already knew it wasn't going to be that much fun because it was so brutally hot that day. We did it in the middle of summer, which was already a bad idea, but we did not have any idea about the hornets. That was bad.
But also, like, there was no staff around. We saw no other people, so just being out in an area where you don't have cell reception and you don't know if you're going to see another person at all that day, it just wasn't fun. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me.
Right.
And the second one is when we stayed at Occidental Caribe. That was the first resort that we stayed at during our recent Dominican trip. It was our budget option. And oh my gosh,
Very budget.
the beach there was absolutely gorgeous.
True.
And I still don't understand how this room was so bad when this resort has such a nice beach. We were in a premium level suite and there was a hole in the ceiling. There was a constant leak in the bathroom. The windows and the doors were so old they didn't seal properly. So even though technically the air conditioning worked, it was always so damp.
Yeah, it could not get the humidity out of there.
Like, I had a really hard time sleeping because the sheets, they felt wet. And every morning I would wake up with a sore throat just from breathing in like the heavy air. It was not fun to stay there for 3 nights.
It wasn't, and I'm typically not picky at all when it comes to my accommodations, but even for me, I gotta say that room was terrible. It was the worst room I think we've probably ever stayed in, but that still wasn't the worst travel experience of the year for me. For me, those honors go to the Margaritaville Islander cruise, but it's due to no fault of the cruise ship itself. We actually thought the ship was great, but about a week or so before we actually got on that ship, we had a foot of rain where we live, and shortly after that, we had a mosquito infestation. And one night I went out to grill, and before I knew it, it was too late. I was already bitten by mosquitoes, probably like 50 to 100 times, and shortly after, my legs were just covered in bug bites. Within the next day or two, a lot of those bug bites had turned into blisters. Apparently, I was having a pretty bad allergic reaction to them, and we had to get on a cruise ship like the very next day. So once we got on that ship, I was in an incredible amount of discomfort. It was actually the first time we actually visited the medical facility on a cruise ship. Thankfully, they were kind enough to give me some gauze to wrap my legs in. That did give me a little bit of relief, but not very much.
And I think every night I was taking our plastic bags or our Ziploc bags from our luggage up to the buffet and just filling them with ice to put on your legs.
Yeah, that ice was the only thing that would give me any me relief from the itching and allow me to sleep. Now, considering how much discomfort I was in, I'm actually really proud that we were able to make 2 pretty decent videos while on that ship. I don't think you could really tell how much I was constantly itching and how uncomfortable I actually was. And I really do think that if I didn't feel so terrible, it maybe would have been my favorite cruise of all of 2024.
Now let's switch gears to a more positive topic and discuss our favorite Airbnbs from this year. I'll let you go first.
All right, so that's a tough one actually, because we stayed at so many different hotels, Airbnbs, and resorts. But if I have to pick one, I gotta go back to Costa Rica. You guys already know how much I love Costa Rica. And I think it was like the 4th and 5th nights during our trip, we actually stayed in this house. It was all glass on one side. It was on the side of a mountain, kind of in the middle of nowhere. You had to drive down a pretty bad road to get there. But once you got there, it just felt so secluded and private. There were toucans and hummingbirds flying around all over the place. We just really felt like you're immersed in nature. And even though it wasn't the fanciest Airbnb we've ever stayed in, it definitely was the most secluded feeling, and I absolutely loved it.
It is not surprising to me that you chose that one. And that was a really cool Airbnb, and I did like staying in it, but I absolutely hated the road that you had to drive to get there. It
was fun.
So steep. I know you kind of thought it was fun, but like I personally wouldn't have wanted to
You
drive
definitely needed 4-wheel drive.
Yes, you did. So for that reason, it does not make my top list.
Yeah.
But I am thinking of another one in Costa Rica that's on the top of my list, and that is the one we stayed at in downtown San Jose. It was in a high rise. I think we were on the 27th floor. So we had an incredible view of the city and the mountains. And the building itself was really nice. It had a ton of amenities. I wish we stayed there a few more nights to be able to enjoy them more.
Yeah, that place was really nice.
It was. But to pick something that isn't in Costa Rica, the other place I think of is the Coral Level at Iberostar in the Dominican Republic. Yeah. It was the 3rd resort we stayed at during our most recent trip.
And the nicest.
Yes, it was very nice. We loved the layout of the room and how close it was to the pools, to the bars, and the beachfront restaurant, which was incredible. It was probably the best restaurant we've eaten at in the Dominican Republic.
Now, we would tell you about our worst accommodations of 2024 as well, but I'm pretty sure you already know what that is based on what we told you about that room earlier. It was pretty scary.
Now, speaking of scary, we should probably go ahead and talk about the scariest things we did this year. And I will go first. There's one thing that comes to mind that I didn't do, and one thing that I did. So the thing that I didn't do was a waterfall jump in Costa Rica.
Oh, you should have done it.
So Skylar had jumped off this waterfall, and I had already decided that I wasn't going to do it because I was still having some back issues with my sciatica. And then I saw him do it, and I got brave, and I went up there. And I was about to jump, and I just kept thinking about what would happen if I landed wrong and it agitated that injury and I wasn't able to swim or I wasn't able to hike back, because we were pretty far up this mountain.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty strenuous hike already. So all those fears just kind of took over, and ultimately I did not do the waterfall jump.
And somewhat ironically though, Jamie actually, shortly after wimping out on the waterfall jump, slipped on the rocks and fell directly on her back, which I'm pretty sure caused a lot more damage than jumping off that waterfall ever would have, and she turned out to be just fine.
But I guess we'll never know. Well, let's talk about the thing that I actually did do, and that was a lot more recently, which was going snoobing for the first time, which I didn't know that it was going to be so scary until I got in the water. For those of you who haven't seen that episode yet, it's a hybrid between snorkeling and scuba diving. You use scuba diving type breathing equipment, but you're still attached to a boat via a very long tube. And at some point they put weights in a belt to help you go further down into the water. And that feeling of sinking for me just triggered a lot of anxiety. So I had to work through that and really talk to the captain and get comfortable with that feeling in order to go to the bottom and really enjoy the experience. But overall, I'm glad that I did it.
Now, I actually love the scuba experience like Jamie, but it wasn't scary at all for me. I love being down deep in the water, so
Yeah.
I just thought it was great. But One experience that was really scary for me was back in Costa Rica. And some of you would probably think it was maybe jumping off one of the waterfalls.
Rappelling down that
Yeah, rappelling down that waterfall. That really wasn't that scary. I was worried about dropping the GoPro, but the one thing that really does scare me about Costa Rica, and I've had to do it twice now, is driving in the capital city of San Jose. The roads there are so busy, they're so narrow, they're just full of cars and also motorcycles weaving in and out of the cars. The roads are in pretty bad shape. There's often a lot of like blind intersections, and it's just a really scary experience. Now, once you get out of San Jose, driving in Costa Rica is actually awesome, and the roads are really pretty, but driving in San Jose is probably the scariest thing I did in all of 2024.
So this year we were able to go on 6 different cruises. We have been able to share 5 of those experiences on our channel, and the 6th one we are still working on the footage. Those episodes should be out in January of 2025.
They will be.
But we do want to share our favorite and least favorite cruise experiences. And honestly, if that 6th one was already on our channel, I would consider picking that for my favorite experience, just because it was so unique.
It was.
But I will stick with the ones that we've already shared and go with the celebrity reflection, because I thought it had the best food both on the buffet and in the main dining room. And I really liked that it went to Bimini, because that was our first time in Bimini.
Yeah, and as far as my favorite cruise, I think a lot of you already know I love cruising on MSC because it's always a really great value. The cruises are always really low price for what you get. And also they visit one of my favorite places in the world, which is Ocean Cay, MSC's private island. Now, we actually cruised on 2 MSC ships this year. They were both scheduled to go to Ocean Cay, but one of them made it and one of them didn't because the waters were too rough. Now, the one that did make it was the MSC Seashore, so I'm gonna have to pick that one as my favorite, just because we had a great time on the island as usual, and it was another really great ship. But we did also sail on the MSC Divina recently. It's a smaller ship than any of the, smaller and older than any other MSC ship we've sailed on. And we really loved it actually. And plus we had a drink package on that ship, so that was really nice. And if the Divina would have actually made it to Ocean Cay, then that one probably actually would have been my favorite cruise of 2024. And as far as my least favorite one, you already know what that is. It's that Margaritaville Islander cruise. Once again, due to no fault of the cruise ship itself, it's an amazing cruise ship. Just don't get on it when you're having a terrible allergic reaction to bug bites. Next, we've got a few more of our favorites to share, starting with our favorite beaches that we visited for the first time in 2024. And we're not even gonna try to pick just one because we visited so many beaches this year and so many of them were amazing. But I think the most amazing beaches that I've ever seen are on the island of Vieques. Now, we got to visit like 6 or 7 different beaches, I think, on that island, and we feel really fortunate about that. But I think my favorite had to be Playa Navio. That was a beach that you actually had to go down a pretty rough road to get to. It was really secluded feeling. I think we were actually the only ones there when we got there. And the sand was really clean. The water was really clear. There were actually some caves on that beach as well. I also really loved the black sand beach on Vieques. It was actually like a mixture of black sand in parts and white sand in the other parts. But it was the first black sand beach we ever experienced. And that beach was also lined with cliffs and palm trees. It was another beautiful beach and I loved it.
And I think another beach that stands out from that trip is one that was on mainland Puerto Rico on the northeast side. I think you had to hike to it a little bit. It was Playa Escondida. It had really pretty reddish sand. It was very soft.
Very unique.
Yeah, and the water was such a pretty blue. And also I think we need to call out one of the beaches here in Florida, which is Bonita Springs. It was our first time there this year. And during our trip, the water was so calm. It was very clear and it had some excellent shelling. Next, we are going to cover our favorite food and drink. And I'm going to take the food because y'all know that Skylar wants to talk about the drinks.
Accurate.
Now, when it comes to the food, the Keys trip really comes to my mind because all the food was incredible, especially the fish and the Cuban food. 2 things really stand out. One being that wasabi crusted tuna at the Lazy Lobster.
Yeah.
And the other being the fried mahi at Wahoo's. And both of those were from fish that we had caught earlier in the day. So it was literally the freshest fish we've ever eaten.
By far.
And man, they were delicious.
Now, my favorite drink that I had in all of 2024 was a passion fruit mojito at the Occidental Caribe in Punta Cana. And yes, that's actually the same resort that Jamie was talking about earlier, where we stayed in that terrible room. But despite how bad that room was, that resort actually had amazingly beautiful beaches, and it had that great drink. It had fresh passion fruit in it. It was refreshing. It was a little bit sweet, a little bit tart. I could have sat on that beautiful beach and drank those drinks all day long. And I guess it just kind of goes to show you that if you're willing to focus on the positives, you can have an enjoyable time almost anywhere. And in a way, that's kind of what this channel is all about.
Now, even though we had some negative experiences this year, overall, the outcome has been positive.
Yeah, we definitely had some videos that were very successful, and we had a few that we learned some lessons from. But ultimately, I think we're both just extremely happy that we've been able to work on this channel full-time together for the last 8 months, and it has been successful enough that we are going to continue to do so into 2025.
Now, this episode has been focused on looking back over 2024. And next week, we are going to be doing a live stream where we're going to talk about what's to come in 2025. And we already have some plans in the works, so we cannot wait to share with you all what's to come next year.
Now, on that live stream, we also plan on announcing the date of our next meetup. So not only will you be able to chat with us online live next week, but we'll also let you know when you can actually meet up with us in person within a couple of months after that.
Now, whether you're one of the almost 17,000 subscribers that have joined us in 2024, or one of the 32,000 subscribers who have been with us even longer than that, or if you are just finding our channel today, we want you all to know that we appreciate each and every one of you, and we do invite you to continue along with us on this journey into 2025.
We'll see you next week on our live stream, January 4th.